Generally, there are always an exception, but football players understand the sort of situation Lukaku found himself in with Dzeko playing before him is absolutely the easiest thing to accept as a player, because the team was flying.
Yeah.
So, as a player, when you're out and you try to get back in and the team's winning and the team's flying and they've reached the Champions League final without you, I mean, there are very few players who are going to turn around and go, I don't care, you need to play me. We absolutely understand in a situation like that why Dzeko would play before Lukaku. So I'm with Gab 100%. There's no way that this is all about that. Absolutely.
Especially when, with all the love in the world, and I love Lukaku, he comes on and he misses two very clear-cut chances
that's what he does.
in that final on top of that. So, yeah.
So where will he land if this oil is to be believed that this not is going ahead? Because the talk is that it is only Juve or Saudi Arabia, and it's all going to be dependent if Juve can get rid of Dusan Vlahovic as well.
Yeah, so this Juve Dusan Vlahovic to me seems like a bunch of hot air because, first of all, again, Vlahovic coming off a horrendous season. Sure, Paris Saint-Germain are interested in everybody. They're that kind of club, right? Continuously. Yeah, if you can sell him for a ton of money, sure. But then you bring in Lukaku and his big wages and his age profile. Doesn't really fit with what Juve are trying to do right now. Saudi, he had the opportunity before when Chelsea did their rapid-fire Koulibaly and Mendy deals and the Ziyech one, which didn't go through. I don't think he has much interest there. I think there's something going on. There's also reports, he was repped for the commercial side by Rock Nation. There's also reports that relationship is soured as well. I think something is going on with him. In terms of a club where he can land, I mean, Chelsea are obviously desperate to get him somewhere. Maybe he'll have to go on loan. If they don't patch this thing up with Inter, and it looks like they won't, maybe in August they'll find a club who needs a center forward, and Chelsea will have to subsidize his wages like they've done in the past. If they can't work this out, to me, that's the only alternative.
Do you think it is telling that we haven't heard from Lukaku yet?
No, not necessarily. I think at this stage of the season, players remain quiet, let their agents do whatever talkings need to be done, and they keep themselves out of it. It also kind of gives you a little bit of a buff and say, well, that's not what I said to my agent, or some kind of a disclaimer. Who believes it later on? We'll soon figure out. But I'm with Gab on sitting on this Juventus one. It makes absolutely no sense to me to put the move to Inter at such a risk on the premise that Vlahovic will move. So you are basing your future on the possibility of Vlahovic and his team getting him out. That don't make any kind of sense to me. So again, as I said before, I think the only reasonable explanation here is that Saudi Arabia are just tabling or about to table an offer that he is prepared to put all that at risk for. I don't see that kind of offer coming from anyone else.
What's a reasonable amount for Vlahovic?
I mean, I think it's a typical thing where you look at a player and you look at his individual components rather than his performance over the last 12 months, and you say, my goodness, this guy can do everything. 22 years old, big, strong, athletic, works really, really hard, and scored a ton of goals before this past season. So there aren't many players like that. I think Juve would expect somewhere north of 70, 80 million euros, which is roughly what they paid for him. Whether they get that is a tough sell, because also I think if you're a club, you're saying, well, am I going to invest this much money on a guy who didn't do it last year? Equally, if you're Juve, you say, why not just keep him another season? He's here. If last year was a dud and just a blip in his career, he'll come back this season and say, yeah, he'll score 25, 30 goals, and then I can sell him to Manchester United for 100 million next year.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.